Hi everyone, my name's Abigail. I'm a therapist and a psychic medium, and I work a lot with men. I work with everyone, but I work a lot with men. And today's conversation is around relapse. So I quite often have men who I work with who will contact me when they're having issues with relapse. They do well for a couple of weeks or for small periods of time, and then for whatever reason they relapse. And quite often, what they'll initially say to me is that if I ask them, well, what was happening when you relapsed, they'll tell me they were bored. And I kind of think this is really interesting because I don't believe in being bored. I actually don't. To be honest, I don't even really think it's a thing. So, but it's really interesting that they name it bored, because it's quite well documented and researched that men don't always have a lot of words for feelings and what those emotions might be and how do I name them. And there's quite often lots of words for anger, sadness, disappointment, or boredom, but there's not that deeper understanding of what exactly might be going on. So when you have an experience that's emotional, psychological, you don't like it, you need a distraction, you want something bigger and more fun to come in, or more action, you then go use a substance, and you can easily think that it was boredom. So one thing that I've noticed is when I work with men, I quite often timeline them around their relapses, which means we go before the relapse happened, and I do a lot of curious questioning about what happened, what was happening. Why do you think you made that decision? What was happening before that? And it's almost always the case that there's been some sort of circumstance that has been very difficult to process. So it may be something, it's nearly always to do with a relationship as well, or work. It's always like a disappointment or a shame or a guilt. It's one of those deeper negative emotions have come up, and they're so used to suppressing it and then looking for some entertainment, excitement, and that's, I think, where the boredom comes in. So one of the ways I work is to be really clear on what do we think's happened, why, because a lot of the relapses will have the same underpinning emotional experience. So it's not difficult. I'll just sit there and ask open questions. They get to answer, and then I'll come up with an idea and say, what do you think about this? And they might say yes or no. And what we're aiming to do is find a psychological drive and an emotional reason why this happened. So then once we've found the emotion, the next big thing to do is, where did that emotion come from? Why do you have that? Because that'll be your pattern. That'll be your pattern, that before a relapse or before this emotion comes up, these thoughts come up, and then your central nervous system is dysregulated. You need something to calm back down, so you go get your substance, or you're gambling, or whatever it is, to keep yourself focused elsewhere because you can't feel this, whatever's going on. So once we know what that is and we have an idea of what the thoughts and the feelings are, it's not difficult to talk to the subconscious and get a clear idea of, when did that first happen? Where did that come from? It's not painful, it's not overwhelming, it's a memory, almost always way back in childhood. The next steps are that I would work with them with releasing the emotional triggers from that memory, and it's actually not difficult, and it's actually really interesting. I use different techniques, usually EFT or hypnosis techniques, or if they're visiting me on site, then maybe some sand play. But you have to get to the base of, where did this come from? And it's quite often in childhood, being incredibly unsettled and unable to feel safe and being in survival mode. And so we go back. So say someone's come, they've had a relapse, we've checked out everything that happened around the relapse, we've asked lots of curious questions, we've found what the emotion is, we've found what the trigger is, we go in, we trace it back, and then we clear it. And so emotions are really interesting in that there's multiple layers. So while it might be initially anger, underneath your anger is vulnerabilities. Underneath vulnerabilities, there might be sadness, shame, guilt, and there's all different layers. Basically, it's taking the child in your mind, in your memory, taking that memory back to joy, which sounds really bizarre, especially if you've been beaten or assaulted or something like that. But what will happen with the memory is the memory will change, and it does change, and it stays changed. That's with my hair. And it'll be, the emotional charge will be removed. The emotional charge will be removed from your system, from your pathway, and from your meridian system in your body. So it sounds a bit complicated, but it's not really. And it's actually, most people actually get a lot of benefit and quite enjoy the process. So that's how I work with people who are relapsing. And then, of course, like there might be multiple standout incidents of the same experience being triggered. So we usually pick your subconscious, because I'll talk to your subconscious through hypnosis techniques, will tell us which are the main experiences that contribute to the current situation that you have today, and we can release all of those. Then what we need to do, so this is how we approach it. We get rid of the triggering emotion from in the system, from the meridian system, from the limbic system, flight, fight, freeze, and from the memories. And then we have to create new pathways as well. So that's done through building what's already working in your life and what's working really well. I'll actually do another video on that because I just want to go over a few more things. So another thing that I always get these men to do is, this addiction that you've had has really impacted your central nervous system. We need your central nervous system to be strong, functioning, and healthy, which basically means your diet needs to be strong and one that you can build the best responses in your body and build muscle, build strength, build resilience, build clear thinking. If you're drinking energy drinks and you're trying to heal your central nervous system, if you're drinking, 17 coffees a day, or you're eating junk food and drinking soft drink and just on the go, or taking other substances, or it's not going to help your central nervous system. So I'm going to give you homework, and that homework is going to be, what do you do? What can you do to, because men should be in their masculine energy, and being masculine is being strong, being in control of your body, so you can be protective, because that's your drivers. So do you play sport? Can you do something physical? Because you're healing from something really serious. There needs to be room in your life for you to go to the gym, go run, go follow your sport, go eat properly, go prioritize making time for meals, not just having the takeaway when you're at work or whatever else. You need to heal your central nervous system, which means putting your body in optimal health to heal. Now, the next thing that I usually look at when I work with men that relapse is your relationships, because relationships, often when someone has an addiction, they can be kind of, I don't want to say toxic, but they're usually not great, because while your partner might want the best for you, they're also going to get resentful of the impact of your addiction as well. So it's important to recognize that there might be a lot of work to be done there, and you might be in ways of treating each other that probably aren't the best. So some of the coaching I do is around, when is it likely to be triggering? What can we do so that you can be in a better space, or respond differently, or recognize the impact you and your addiction is having on your relationship, on your family, and start to do it differently. It's not about holding all the guilt and shame and all the rest and beating yourself up with that, because it's honestly not helpful. We'll acknowledge it and it's there, but it's about taking concrete actions. How can you do your life differently so that your relationships aren't going to be triggering, and while you're healing your central nervous system, your mind, body, spirit, you can also start to heal your relationships. So that's where I start with men who are prone to relapse or at risk of relapsing. So if you'd like a session, I'll leave my details below. I'd recommend ongoing sessions with myself or someone else regularly, because what I notice is when people have regular sessions ongoing is they start to be able to, the basis to life is problem solving, and you're not a very good problem solver when you have an addiction. You're just not. So what I notice is when people have regular appointments, because we problem solve together, they start to be able to bring this into their life. They tell me about situations in their life where they've used the techniques that we've gone through in our sessions to solve problems and not react to problems emotionally, psychologically, addictively, and brings massive change, especially when I'm able to bring that to their attention and keep strengthening it, because it's not about just healing the emotion and the psychological drivers. It's also about building new, stronger, bigger, better, the best. All right. That's some of the work I do with people with relapse. So if you'd like a session, send me an email. I'll put my details below. And thank you.